The fast food restaurant buzzes with the usual lunchtime rush. The clatter of trays being set on counters, the sizzling sounds from the grill, and the hum of chattering customers fill the air. The young worker, barely in her early 20s, is hustling behind the counter. She's tired, her back aching from standing all day, but she forces a smile and tries to maintain her composure as she serves one customer after another. The order line is long, and her shift feels like it's stretching on forever. But she knows it's part of the job. Then, he walks up to the counter, a man in his late 40s, dressed in a wrinkled shirt and impatient eyes. From the moment he steps up, it's clear he's already in a bad mood. His eyes narrow, scanning the menu, though he seems more interested in finding something to complain about than actually deciding what to order. "Just give me a burger and fries," he snaps, his tone sharp, almost cutting through the noise of the restaurant. The worker nods, trying to stay upbeat. "Sure, sir. Would you like anything to drink with that?" He mutters something about soda, barely acknowledging her. She punches in his order and passes it to the kitchen. Then, it happens. The mistake. A simple one, a mix-up in the toppings on his burger. It's hardly anything significant, but to the man, it's the last straw. His face reddens, his voice rising in anger as he slams his fist on the counter. "This is unbelievable," he shouts loud enough for the other customers to hear. "How hard is it to get a simple order right? Are you people completely incompetent?" The worker freezes for a moment, the words stinging, her stomach twisting in embarrassment. She wants to apologize, to explain, but the man isn't giving her a chance. "I'm so sorry, sir," she says quickly, trying to fix the mistake, but it only seems to make him angrier. The voices of the surrounding customers hush as a crowd begins to form, watching the scene unfold. Her face burns with humiliation, but she keeps her eyes down, trying to ignore the growing anxiety in her chest. Her hands shake, but she doesn't let it show. She just has to make it through this. The rest of her shift passes in a blur. The harshness of the man's words echoes in her mind, drowning out the sounds of the busy kitchen and the steady hum of the restaurant. Every time she tries to focus on her work, his voice fills her thoughts. "How hard is it to get a simple order right? Are you completely incompetent?" She replays the scene over and over, wondering if there was something she could have done differently. Maybe she could have caught the mistake earlier, or maybe she could have said something to calm him down. The possibilities swirl, but none of them make her feel any better. Her coworkers try to reassure her, offering quick smiles and words of encouragement, but it doesn't help. They tell her not to take it personally, that it's just part of the job, but she can't shake the feeling that maybe she is incompetent, that maybe she just isn't cut out for this. The humiliation from the encounter sits heavily in her chest, and it feels like it's impossible to shake off. She tries to hold back the tears, but they keep threatening to spill. Whenever she's alone for even a second, she fights to keep them in check, wiping at her eyes quickly, hoping no one will notice. But no matter how hard she tries to stay strong, the weight of the man's words presses against her, reminding her of her vulnerability. When her shift finally ends, she steps out of the restaurant and into the quiet of the evening. The street feels different now, the world around her seemingly indifferent to her pain. Her mind is still stuck on the man's voice, and her heart feels heavier with each step she takes. She pulls her jacket tighter around herself, trying to block out the cold, but the chill in her chest feels even more overwhelming. The walk home isn't as long, and as she trudges down the sidewalk, the flashbacks continue. The cruel words, the stares from the customers, the embarrassment that burned through her. She wonders why people feel the need to treat others so poorly, why they let their frustrations spill over onto someone who's just doing their best. She questions if anyone ever thinks about how their words affect others, or if they even care. A few days later, the worker is at home, taking a break from her usual shift. She's curled up on the couch, trying to relax after a long week, but the tension from that awful encounter still lingers. Just as she begins to lose herself in a book, her phone rings. It's her aunt, and there's urgency in her voice. "Hey, sweetie, it's your cousin, Timmy. He's been in a minor accident. It's nothing too serious, but I need someone to come down to the ER. Can you come with me?" The worker's heart races as she grabs her jacket. She agrees to meet her aunt at the hospital, pushing aside the feelings of unease still stuck in her chest from the incident at the fast food restaurant. A hospital, of all places. She sighs and tries to shake off her worries, telling herself it's just another trip, nothing to be concerned about. When she arrives at the emergency room, she's immediately struck by the chaos. The hospital is crowded, filled with the anxious buzz of waiting patients, families talking in hushed voices, and the occasional sound of an overhead PA system. The air is heavy with the sharp scent of antiseptic, and the tension is palpable as people anxiously wait for news or treatment. She follows the signs to the main emergency area and catches a glimpse of her aunt, who motions for her to come over. But as she approaches, her eyes lock onto a man lying on a bed in one of the treatment rooms. His face is pale, bruised, and swollen, a stark contrast to the sharp features she remembers from the fast food restaurant. She freezes. It's him. The same man. The one who had yelled at her just a few days ago. The one who had humiliated her in front of the crowd. The anger she felt earlier suddenly shifts to confusion. She wasn't prepared for this moment. For a moment, she stands there, unsure of what to do. Should she approach him, or pretend she doesn't recognize him? Her heart races again, and she feels a swirl of emotions. Anger, confusion, and something else. Something unexpected. As if on cue, the man turns his head. His eyes lock with hers, and for a split second, there's a flash of recognition. His face goes pale with embarrassment, his gaze falling to the side. His body stiffens, and he weakly whispers, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." His voice trails off, barely audible, and she is taken aback by the vulnerability in his tone. There's no anger, no harshness, just a soft, sincere apology, something she hadn't expected from him at all. The man, once so full of rage, now looks small and vulnerable. The worker stands there, frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She had prepared herself for a different kind of confrontation. Maybe he would be angry again, maybe he'd continue to belittle her, or perhaps he wouldn't even recognize her at all, dismissing her as just another face in the crowd. Instead, the man's expression is filled with something she never expected: regret. He looks up at her, his eyes wide and soft, his voice barely audible. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." His apology feels raw, unguarded, and it catches her off guard. Her mind struggles to process it. The worker stands there, unsure of how to respond. The anger she had carried with her from that day, fueled by his cruel words and the humiliation, mixes with confusion. She had expected confrontation, but instead, she's met with vulnerability. She wants to ask him why he acted the way he did, why he thought it was okay to treat her like that. She wants to demand answers to make him feel the weight of his actions. But something stops her. Part of her feels a pull to just let it go, to rise above it, to be the bigger person. Taking a deep breath, the worker gathers her thoughts. "You know." She pauses, trying to keep her voice steady. "You really embarrassed me the other day. I was just doing my job." The man's face falls at her words. He lowers his eyes, avoiding her gaze, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of her statement is too much to bear. "I was having a bad day," he mutters, his voice barely more than a whisper. "That doesn't excuse how I treated you, but I was wrong." She's taken aback by how sincere he sounds. The man, once loud and demanding, now seems small and defeated. The worker watches him closely, seeing the raw vulnerability in his eyes as he lies there, injured, his physical wounds a visible reminder of his own struggles. The silence between them stretches for a moment before the man speaks again, this time in a more measured tone. "It's just, everything's been falling apart lately. I lost my job a few weeks ago. My wife and I are going through a rough patch, and I don't know what to do about it. I guess I took it out on you, and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." The worker listens, her initial anger dissipating, replaced by something softer: understanding. She hadn't expected this, hadn't anticipated that his outburst had nothing to do with her at all. His anger wasn't personal. It wasn't aimed at her, but at the chaos in his own life. The helplessness, the frustration. She can see it now in his eyes. His life isn't as simple as she had thought. She opens her mouth to speak, but the words don't come right away. The tension between them that had built up that day begins to fade, slowly replaced by empathy. She realizes that she's no longer angry. Instead, she feels a sense of compassion, something she hadn't expected to feel after the way he treated her. I get it, she finally says, her voice quiet but genuine. Life can be overwhelming sometimes, but it's still no excuse for treating others like that. The man nods, his eyes glistening with the beginning of tears. He seems to shrink even further, his shame more evident now. You're right, I'll never do that again. And for the first time, the worker feels a shift, a sense of peace settling over her. The anger she had been holding on to is replaced by understanding, and the weight of the past encounter lightens. The worker and the man sit in silence for a moment, both of them processing the weight of what had just been said. It's hard for the worker to believe that just a few days ago, this man had been the one who humiliated her in front of a crowd. Now, his eyes are full of regret, and she can see that he truly means every word he says. I didn't realize how much my words would affect you, the man admits, his voice quiet but earnest. I was just so frustrated, and I took it all out on you. I'm really sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope you can understand that it wasn't about you. It was about everything else that was going wrong in my life. The worker nods, her heart softening even more. It did hurt, she admits, but I get it now. I know it wasn't personal. I just don't understand why some people feel the need to take their anger out on others, especially when we're just trying to do our jobs. The man looks down, nodding slowly. I know. I guess I wasn't thinking about how it would affect you. It was selfish of me. They share a brief, understanding silence before he speaks again. Is there anything I can do to make it up to you? I know it's not much, but I could leave a positive review for the restaurant, or maybe help you with something, anything. I just want to do something to make things right. The worker looks at him, surprised by his sincerity. For a moment, she's tempted to ask for something, anything, to feel like there's more justice in the situation. But then, something shifts inside her. She realizes that forgiveness doesn't need to come with a condition. His apology is enough. I don't need anything from you, she says gently. I'm not looking for something in return. But I appreciate the thought. It means a lot that you're trying to make amends. The man's face lights up with a small smile, and for the first time, she sees him as more than just the angry customer from the other day. He's just a man, struggling with his own battles, trying to find a way to make things right. As his family arrives, his expression changes, and he thanks her once more, this time with more sincerity than she thought possible. I won't forget this, he says, his voice shaking slightly. Thank you for being so kind to me, even after everything. I know I don't deserve it, but I'll never forget your kindness. The worker nods, offering him a smile, and walks away from the emergency room with a lighter heart. As she steps into the cool evening air, she feels a sense of peace she hadn't expected. It's as if the weight of that encounter has been lifted from her shoulders. She reflects on the healing process that has taken place in such a short amount of time. The man's apology and her ability to forgive have opened a door to something she hadn't fully realized until now. The power of letting go. The power of forgiveness. She doesn't need his apology to feel better, but it has helped. She feels a sense of closure she hadn't anticipated, and that is worth more than anything. She walks home with a newfound strength, knowing that everyone has their own struggles, and sometimes people lash out because of things beyond our control. She thinks about how much she's grown from the experience. It's not just about the apology, it's about her own growth, her ability to rise above the hurt, and her capacity to see beyond someone's angry words. And with that, she feels stronger, more at peace with herself than she has in a long time. A few weeks pass, and the worker returns to her fast food job, feeling different. She's more confident now, her shoulders no longer weighed down by the burden of anger and hurt. The incident with the man in the emergency room feels like a distant memory. She's learned to let it go, to rise above the bitterness that once threatened to consume her. Now, when rude customers approach the counter, she stands tall, calm, and steady, no longer allowing their words to affect her. She knows that people come with their own struggles, and often, their frustration has nothing to do with her. This newfound perspective gives her the strength to navigate each shift with more grace, even in the most difficult moments. Then, one day, something unexpected happens. The door to the restaurant opens, and in walks the same man. The worker freezes for a moment, her heart skipping a beat as she recognizes him immediately. He walks up to the counter, and she can't help but feel a little nervous. What if things go sour again? What if he starts yelling like he did last time? But when he reaches the counter, his expression is different. He's smiling, his demeanor calm and polite. "Hi there," he says warmly. "I'll have the usual, burger and fries, please." The worker looks up at him, surprised by the change in tone. She takes his order, and he continues. "By the way, you did a really great job handling the rush last week. You kept everything under control, even when things were chaotic. I really admired that." The worker's eyes widen. It's hard to believe that this is the same man who, just a few weeks ago, had treated her with such hostility. She can't help but smile at his compliment. It feels like a moment of redemption, a sign that things have truly come full circle. As he takes his food, he pauses and looks at her, his expression sincere. "I just want to say thank you again for what you did in the emergency room. I know I didn't deserve your kindness, but it really made a difference. I've been trying to make better choices since then, trying to be a better person." The worker smiles, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She hadn't expected anything from him, but hearing him acknowledge her kindness fills her with gratitude. The cycle of anger and bitterness that started with that rude encounter has truly come full circle. As he leaves the restaurant, the worker feels a sense of peace settle over her. She's grateful for the lesson in forgiveness and empathy that she's learned. She's no longer holding on to resentment, and she's learned to give people the benefit of the doubt. In that moment, she realizes how far she's come, not just in her job, but in her heart. And with that, she walks away from the counter, ready to face whatever comes next, with a stronger, kinder spirit. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this heartfelt story of forgiveness and personal growth. If you liked the video, please don't forget to hit that like button and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So drop a comment below and let us know what you think. And if you want to see more stories like this, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.